All right, doing rocks. There is one scene there that has a bunch of rocks in a field, and they're pretty simple. Again, you just have to be a little bit loose, and you can do this in layers. You can do it with a lighter gray, and then come back in with the darker shadows over top. So let's take. I still have my gray from doing my barn here. If you watch that video first, I don't know if you watched the barn video, but it doesn't matter. I've got a light gray here. Okay, and let's say I've got some rocks in these fields in this area here. I'm not going to give it context, but so you're just going to pull. Again, I'm holding my brush very loosely at a low angle like this because I don't want to be, doing detail. You want to be loose when you're painting nature. You want to be loose, and you don't have to look at every rock. Okay, so I've got some small rocks that are just kind of down low like this, trickling off like that, and then they come up. And so I'm just kind of like, up and down. And I might grab a little bit of my brown here, my burnt sienna, throw some of that in here and there. Heck, there's some moss on those rocks, so if you have some green, you might even throw a little green in there too. Whoops, I'm kind of getting a little angular. So kind of just up and down, and along the bottom, you can even be, run some lines down like that, like as if they're kind of going into the grass. But we can get more into that when we do the darker values. So you can kind of just follow the rough outline of the rock. So if you kind of just square those off and you're kind of up and down, you can see you've got you get those irregularities in there. And then we'll kind of let that dry, and then we'll just paint in some shadows afterwards. If you wanted to add a little bit more color, let's see, let me throw a little. This is sort of dried already, but I've got some in there. I've got some browns, and it's good to throw some greens along the top again, maybe here and there. Just because, rocks aren't just, they can be multicolored at times, so it's good to just have some multiple colors like that. And then we'll let that dry, and then we'll come back and paint in some shadows. All right, so this is dried. So let's mix up a darker gray here. Grab my blue, some burnt umber. Get a nice dark gray going there. Who knows? You can always throw in a little burnt sienna just for some color. So now you just kind of look at what you've got. If you've got multicolors, and you kind of look for rocks to emerge. Obviously it's going to be, sometimes darker along the bottoms. Okay, you can just kind of have these, like I was saying, well, I can do that afterwards. Use the corner of your brush, the edge of your brush. You might even have some rocks that you can use the corner to kind of do some lines, and just try to be as irregular as possible, but kind of have some square edges to it. Probably need more along the bottom here. And then they, with everything else in context, they start to look like rocks. And if you want to take your pointed brush, like I was saying before, and you can pull some of those down, like hopefully, this is maybe probably already, you would have already have your grass painted here, but you can pull, so this would have a little bit more context. If you pull some of these shadows down in, it will look like it's going into the grass, and it'll be a little bit more, look a little bit more sense, or make a little bit more sense once you have that grass in that context and everything else. So that's all there is to it, really. You just have a multicolored, you throw in some other colors. If you do your rocks, you can see some of those greens and those browns coming in there now, and the shadows, and then with all the other detail, especially if I have other little things of rocks. Now some of the smaller ones, you might have some smaller ones out here in the distance, perhaps kind of trickling off, because in that scene there are some distant rocks out here kind of hidden. So with that, in the context of whatever little trees or scrub brush is out there in the distance, it'll have its context, or whatever tree you have that's up behind here growing up. Just throw something in there for context. It'll make more sense to you.